The famous wreck of the Titanic is quickly disappearing. The Iron Giant is being eaten by metal-eating bacteria and battered by deep-sea currents, but only for $250,000 you can dive down and get a look before it's gone. The Associated Press reports that you can now join an expedition to see the Titanic for as little as $250,000. That's the price OceanGate Expeditions is charging people to join its next expedition and dive down to the Titanic's wreck in its 5-person submersible. For that price, you'll be trained to be a mission specialist, operating some of the equipment and helping experts to survey the famous wreck. The wreck itself is gradually disappearing, and the company's next cluster of 10-day expeditions, slated for May to June next year, will focus on documenting all remaining objects with high-tech scanning devices. The 109-year-old ocean liner is being battered by deep-sea currents and metal-eating bacteria that consume hundreds of pounds of iron a day. Holes pervade the wreckage, and large parts of the superstructure are nearing the point of collapse. In addition to charting the decomposition of the wreck, OceanGate also plans to document the site's unique sea life, such as crabs and corals. The Titanic was dubbed the unsinkable ship because of its strong construction, but in 1912 it sank within 3 hours in the freezing waters of the North Atlantic. The unsinkable ship was brand new and on its maiden voyage when it struck an iceberg and sank, killing more than 1,500 people. Yemen's civil war has generated the perfect conditions for a massive oil spill to happen. Here are the details. The Guardian reports that an abandoned and rusting oil tanker with 1.1 million barrels of oil on board is like a ticking time bomb that can easily break up and cover the Yemen coastline under tons of crude oil. The FSO Safer is a single-hulled tanker that carries 4 times more oil than was spilled during the massive Exxon Valdez disaster in 1989. The ship was abandoned in 2017 and keeps on deteriorating while Yemen's Houthi rebels fight a civil war against a Saudi-led coalition on the land next to it. In May 2020, water entered the ship's engine room through a leaking pipe, and the vessel's fire extinguishing system is now non-operational, according to a study published in the journal Nature Sustainability. Researchers say a hull breach would cover important coral reefs and oil, while also closing desalination plants and cutting 9 million people off from clean water. The likely oil spill would also destroy a big part of Yemen's fish sources at a time when the country is starting to suffer from famine. The rebels, who control the area where the ship is located, have previously blocked UN inspectors from assessing the vessel. However, the Houthis have repeatedly blamed the Saudi-led coalition that is fighting them for preventing UN inspectors' access to the tanker. Sri Lanka's beautiful beaches are being swamped by billions of plastic pellets and toxins as the country deals with a massive and growing environmental disaster. The disaster started when a fire erupted on a container ship after it anchored near the port of Colombo. The ship's owners have been aware of an acid leak on the ship for weeks, but say they could not fix the problem because Qatar and India would not allow the ship to dock there. Here are the details. The BBC reports that Sri Lanka is dealing with a growing environmental disaster as billions of plastic pellets, oil, and dangerous chemicals from a sinking ship smother its coastline. The container ship, Express Pearl, left the Indian port of Hazira on May 15th, heading for Colombo. The ship had earlier sprung a leak of highly corrosive nitric acid, but its owners claimed they had been denied permission by both Qatar and India to dock the ship. While it was anchored off Sri Lanka's Colombo harbor, a fire broke out on May 20th. Sri Lankan officials believe the fire was caused by the leaking acid. The ship then burned out of control for 2 weeks before settling in the shallow waters of the harbor. In that time, hundreds of shipping containers fell into the sea, releasing toxins and billions of plastic pellets into the ocean. The plastic pellets have already covered miles of Sri Lanka's famously beautiful beaches. Experts say the pellets still in the sea could travel as far as India, Indonesia, and Somalia. Local fishermen were told to stay out of the ocean, but the fishermen say they need to fish to survive and will need to be compensated by the government. Sri Lanka has launched a criminal investigation into the disaster and says it will seek compensation. The world's busiest shipping channel, Egypt's Suez Canal, has been completely blocked by a huge container ship that ran aground after losing control, causing a long traffic jam of cargo ships in the region. The BBC reports that the tugboats and a digger have been deployed to help shift the 400-meter-long ship called the Ever Given, but there are fears it could remain trapped for many days. The incident occurred just north of the port of Suez early on Tuesday, March 23rd. The ship is lodged sideways across the waterway. blocking the path of dozens of other vessels, which are now trapped in lines in both directions. The ship's owner said they suspect the ship was pushed by a sudden strong wind, causing it to hit the side and run aground. Incidents such as this are rare, but could have huge ramifications for global trade. If canal personnel are unable to pull the ship free in a high tide, they would have to start removing cargo, which would be a very difficult task in the middle of the desert. The BBC reports that the Ever Given container ship has been successfully refloated after being stranded in the Suez Canal for almost a week. This after an around-the-clock international effort to dislodge the massive vessel and reopen the vital shipping lane. The intense salvage effort has focused on dredging sand from below the front and rear of the ship, while also pulling the ship with tugboats. Canal authorities said the container ship began to float successfully on Monday after finally responding to the pulling maneuvers of a number of tugboats. Workers managed to free the rear part of the ship first, swinging the stern into the canal, while the bow was still stuck in the sloping sand that forms the side of the canal. At that stage, tugboats were used to make sure a gust of wind and currents did not push the stern back into the bank, while workers were still working to free the bow. The 6-day blockage cost Egypt an estimated $14 million per day.
For more news animations and explainers, hit the subscribe and bell button to join the TomoNews family. Thanks for watching.